Today, we're here and we're ready. And I come with a challenge because I assert you don't know JSON. And as soon as you read that title, I'm sure there's an OG in the back that's like, I was doing JSON before you were born. Yeah, you're probably right. It's clickbait. My submission is perhaps while you do know JSON, maybe there's a tool or two that you can gain today to add to your programming knowledge. Is that okay? Yeah. Feel free to make noise during my talk. So let's get to it. First of all, where are my web developers? It's hard to see with the lights. Current, future, present, past. All right, awesome. So you know when you learn web dev, I don't care if you learned it in college, boot camp, or a book. People used to learn from books back in the day. We typically all learned it in a similar format, right? HTML, hypertext markup language, to get that structure down. CSS, cascading style sheets, get the design down. JavaScript, to get the interactivity with the web. Shout out to Brandon Ike, 1995, made us have better interactive websites. And somewhere in learning about JavaScript, you learn about this interesting file format called JSON, J-S-O-N, JavaScript Object Notation. And it was pretty cool because there was key value pairs. And right, that was a nice little precursor for hash maps and dictionaries later. You learn you can have different types on the pair side of the key value pairs. You learn you can embed one object within another object. You got really fancy and you learned about an interesting thing that's the naming, because it's called JSON, not Jason. And my good friend Taylor Desson here, please let him know if he didn't hear it from Dallas. It's not pronounced Jason, it's pronounced JSON. We love Taylor, but this is what happens when HR folks make tech jokes. So when you're learning about JSON, the cool thing you learn, particularly as a beginning web developer, is this fascinating thing known as the API, the Application Programming Interface, a system that allows you to interact with another system. And very often, if you just make a request to a particular endpoint, you will get back what we call a payload, a body of JSON. And if you just went to a boot camp, right? Where are my boot camp folks? Like you had no tech before you went to your boot camp. Shout out to you, I'm a boot camp guy too. You were just making these little rinky-dink landing pages and they taught you about APIs and it's like, I have data. And then you made movie websites and weather websites. And you know, I had a guy who was a boot camp student from Arkansas. He made a tree identification website. He liked trees, don't judge him. But you can make all these cool things because you have access to another person's data vis-a-vis JSON. It's so easy to parse through. Most all of you know how to do that. Fun fact, really sad fact, for many of us, I'll say just some of us, our learning of JSON ended right there. So my submission is, while you do know JSON, I'm going to give you just one or two tools to take you from a JSON novice to a certified JSON superhero. Superman, Superwoman, Superperson, you're going to be a JSON superhero. Are you ready for it? Say yes. Yes. I'm going to give you superpowers, and here's the first one. It's called JSON as a contract. Now, you know what a contract is. You see the paper there. You've dealt with contracts before, right? Think about paper contracts. There's terms and conditions. There's an understanding about how interactions will happen between different parties. There's party A, there's party B. We agree to do this, we will not do that. You'll pay me this, you will not pay me that, right? My divorce decree with my first wife, it was a contract. You know, things like you say my name one more time, I'm going, okay, no, that wasn't in there. That wasn't in there. But there's contracts. There's understanding about how different beings interact. In fact, protocols are really contracts. I mentioned Brandon Ike, but before we have Brandon Ike, we have Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Shout out to his days in CERN, and he had this interesting idea about how to share white papers, basically. And he pitched it to one boss, and his boss shut him down. And he pitched it again later, and he said, go for it. And he used his spare time to come up with this cool thing called Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP1. Thank you, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, for giving us an understanding, a contractual understanding about how data should be exchanged over the internet. And fun fact, fast forward to all these days later, HTTP 5, I guess we're in, or whatever. It hasn't changed very much. We've adopted some things, we've modernized some things, but it hasn't changed very much. There's a contractual understanding of the exchange of data in that protocol. And of course, one of the hottest protocols today is called MCP, Model Context Protocol, a general understanding, contractual understanding, if you will, of how different AI systems will interact, but it's still just a contract. Fun fact, you can do some contractual stuff with JSON, particularly if you use a JSON schema. Here's just a few examples. You can look at data integrity, API contract testing, code generation, and improved debugging. I encourage you, if you haven't touched JSON schema before, do a little playing in your spare time with JSON schema. Here's an example. I hope you can see it in the back. If you can't, just trust me when I tell you it's really cool. On the left side, we have basic JSON. This is describing a single user object. This user has a name, John Doe, because I'm such great I'm so great at naming things. He has a preference of a dark theme. His email is true. He has SMS false, so don't send him any text. We have his address. We have this single user described in the left side on JSON. The utility of this is to get information about a single user. Now, when we talk about scale, we typically think about millions and millions of users being on our database, on our server. But the best way to think about scale is before you get them. So if you just go from JSON to JSON schema, we've gone from identifying a single user to identifying the structure, the contractual structure of every user we get from now till infinity, with only a few more lines of code. And so, for instance, as you see here, the string is going to be the type for the properties of the user ID. We can even embed our regex or regex in there, whatever you want to say, tabs or spaces, I don't care. The username is going to be a string, min length of 3, et cetera, et cetera. This very simple, straightforward, human-readable schema defines the contract, the understanding of how all future data will be when it comes to users. We've got like a base model. That's helpful because we can use something called AJV. I know you can't see that. I'll go about 3 times. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's enough. This is AJV. And AJV is, again, someone did a great job of naming, another JSON validator. That's literally the name of it, AJV. And what AJV allows you to do is take a schema and compare that schema to the data you're getting in. Real easy. And you can do it using JSON. And so in this case, I'm gonna go back out 1, 2, 3. That should be able to, nope, 4, boom, good. I'm gonna go to this, so this is part of this, all right? Everything I'm gonna show you now is part of the original slide. So going in this schema, I'm defining my type to be an object, my properties, I'm gonna have a username, it's gonna have to be a string, my email has to be a string, in the format it's gonna be email, and they have to be required. So in this form, like a standard web form, I'm defining using my JSON schema how the data has to be structured. Which means I can then go and use another JSON validator and do some cool stuff. Let's look at it. It's very straightforward. Let's get an instance of AJV. We're going to call it AJV, lowercase. We're going to define a method called validate, which is nothing but compiling the schema on our post request to our users, request response. We're going to say, hey, we're going to have a Boolean called isValid, and it's going to simply use that validate method on the body of the request, the incoming data. Very straightforward. You know this stuff. And if it's no good, if there's anything that violates the contract, throw it out. Give them a 400. We don't like 400 errors unless we're testing. We give them that 400 error. Success, false, no good, invalid data. Don't try that again. So we can do a little web validation using JSON and AJV before we even think about the deep nuts and bolts of cyber. We can be a little light cyber ourselves as web devs. So that's if it's no good, but if it is good, we'll say, hey, take that same request body, give them a 201 status, success true, validate that user, create the user. Sanitizing data, data integrity, just using JSON and AJV. If you learned something just now, let me see you raise your hands. I'm in the right place. Oh, y'all need to pay attention. Let's go. All right. Next one. That was the first superpower, JSON as a contract. Number 2, JSON as a query language. This is all things open. So I know there's a lot of Linux nerds here. If you're a hardcore Linux nerd and you're not afraid to admit, let me see a show of hands. Feel free to just make some noise. All right. So this is my sed, awk, and grep crew, right? They're in the command line. They do not leave the terminal ever. They will go back to the old terminals that were connected to the ENIAC if they could. They just love the terminal. They like doing things in the command line. And I don't blame them. It's very efficient. It's very smart. Fun fact, really fun fact, you can do some stuff in the command line with JSON and JQ. Now we're going to do some live coding. It might work, and I might look like an idiot. It's okay. But let's just try some things. So I'm in my coding folder here. We're going to just list out some things real quick, and I should have a data file. Yes, I'm in the right place, so we'll clear that up. We're going to just concatenate that data file real quick. This is a bunch of users I created. It's just fake data. It's not important. It's like 90 random users. They have an ID, they have a username, they have a name, they have an email, and a Boolean of is active. I don't know what they're active in. We won't make any judgments on that, but they're either active, true, or not true. Who has heard of JQ and has used it? Yeah. Okay. Well, y'all are with me already. That's like 50-50. So for the other 50, like, just pay attention. Because if we concatenate that, we can also concatenate that and then pipe it to JQ, and instantly it's doing the Birdman hand rub. Because it's giving us a little syntax highlighting. It knows the difference in a key and a value. It knows the difference in a string and a Boolean. It knows what's going on. It's ready to do some cool stuff for us. All right, we'll let you do some cool stuff. So we pipe it to JQ, and let's just give it an argument. By the way, for all my beginners and learners, where are my beginners and learners? Beginner learners, yeah. Start doing things like just typing the command and just hitting enter, because there's so much stuff in man pages and help pages you can learn. Like just hit enter and see what the options are. We see if right here we have the option of adding some arguments. So let's just clear that up, make it a little cleaner. We're going to say, yeah, cat data JSON, pipe that to, I can't see, pipe that to JQ. I feel like my mom. Let me take off my glasses so I can see. Pipe that to JQ, that was a joke. And then we're going to say, let's take an argument of, let's just look at all the users. And for all those users, can I get the length? Will that work? Yep, so there's 90 users. Nice. That was kind of basic. Let's get a little more fancy. Let's take the users array, because all those 90 users are in an array. And out of that users array, let's just pipe that to the name property. Will that work? That's all the names. Which means it'll work for all the fields, all the usernames, all the emails. We can just one-liner, one shot if you like, get all that information. But we had a Boolean, and it was is active is true, and this would be a kind of a typical use case, something that a boss would ask you, hey, find out how many are using, how many active users do we have, how many are doing something, how many are engaged in some activity. So we can also say, take that, and let's select all of the ones where is active is true. Does that look right? Hope so. Yeah. So this is all the ones that are true, but I don't know how many it is. And this is still a streaming format. We can't count a streaming format, so I need to put it in a format that I need, but this is just JavaScript. So let's just take the whole output and make it into an array. So we'll put that there, and we'll put this here. Yes, I'm being exceptionally careful for a reason. Leave me alone. And we'll pipe that to length. And there are 55, can you see that on the bottom? So there are 55 active users. That one line gave me that. Now, maybe you're not impressed by that. I'm okay with that. But I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, what if I wanted to do this in just JavaScript, right? Because we're all JavaScript nerds at the end of the day. I want to write it in Node, JavaScript. What would it look like just to filter through some JSON and find out how many active users I have? And it told me, where is it? This right here. About 10 to 11 lines of code. That 11 lines versus that one line. What are you going to choose? Thank you very much. Y'all are as smart as I thought you were. Excellent. So JQ is awesome for doing querying of JSON right in the command line. If you just learned something, raise your hand. I love this. I'm in the right place. Let's go back to our format. Let's go back to our slides. Option F to make it super. Yeah, nice. All right, good. Superpower number 3. So we did contract, we did query language. Superpower number 3, JSON as a prompt. This very blurry image is from the original Star Wars. And this scene in particular is when Luke and Uncle Ben are talking to the little guys, the, help me, the Ewoks, and they need to buy a robot, right? They need to buy a robot. And so they go and they're looking at C-3PO. Actually, they buy one robot and I think it dies or something, it blows up, whatever. And so this guy comes on the scene. And for the purposes of my talk, we're just gonna call it the AI. You know it's C-3PO, I know it's C-3PO. It is an advanced AI, I'm gonna call it an AI. And Uncle Ben starts doing an interesting thing. He begins prompting his AI. Go back and watch it. He's like, can you do this? And the AI is just overly eager. Yes, I can do this and this. He can always stop, slow down, slow. You're way too eager. Well, what about this? And the AI just goes off. Oh yes, I know these language. He's like, stop. He's like just overly eager with all of his responses. And how George Lucas knew AI would be overly eager in 1977 when this came out, and you're seeing the same thing with Gemini and ChatGPT now. You give it something, it just hallucinates all this information. And you're like, stop, you're wrong. That's slop. It's fascinating to me. But you can use JSON as a prompt. This is not an AI talk, but you wouldn't come if I didn't drop a little bit of AI in there. Come on now. So here we go. This is a blurry image. The blurry image is of this video. This beautiful video of a mermaid swimming through some sort of an underwater world was created by that prompt. The user's name on Twitter is IamEmily2050. Don't worry, I have contacted her in advance. She knows I'm using her slide in her video. She found that she can get more deterministic responses via video when she uses more deterministic language, more structured language in her prompts. Now, I understand and you understand, much of the advantages of LLMs is the fact that we can use natural language. We can just talk regular. However, when you're trying to do certain specific things, sometimes it's good to use structured prompts to get a more structured response. So this is one example. I talked about how she does it, and I thought I would replicate it myself, and I learned how she isolates, as you see, the shot versus the camera angle versus the subject versus the scene. She isolates those, which means she can do some interesting things. She can very easily go to a single key value pair in this JSON prompt and make a single change and do A/B testing. I'd be happy to. How about that? Good? She can go to a single pair of the key value pair, make a single change and do A/B testing. Or where are my Gemini VO3 fans? You're getting your 8-second videos. How many can we get now? Like 3 a day? Is it 3 a day? Nobody does video? Play with video, it's fun. Gemini will give you 3 8-second videos per day vis-a-vis their model VO3 in the Gemini app, which means you can try to make like a 24-second video. You're making YouTube videos now, but you use plain text. Very often it changes a lot of the dynamics of one scene to the next. Trust me, I've tried it. I'm like, make it just like the last one, and it never works. However, if you use JSON as your prompt, you can simply reprompt with the same original prompt you had and only change the pieces that you want changed. So that's the theory. I tried it. Let's see here. Boom, boom. Yeah. So the question is natural language versus JSON versus XML versus something else. Because if you look about this online and Twitter, everybody has an opinion, right? It's a tabs versus spaces thing. And I am not saying, do not go to the internet and say, Lawrence said the best way to prompt for videos is JSON. It is a way to get a more structured response. So I did that, and I created the following video.
It's always the best.
I'm gonna let it loop so you can hear it. So this is my video, this is my account, Lawrence Decodes.
Nature's food is always the best.
It's an AI video made with a prompt. That is not a real person. So I wanted to make a second scene that looks just like this scene, but she says something else, like continue the video. And so what I did, and I can probably get rid of that, get rid of that. What I did is I took my original prompt and I put it in Gemini, and I only changed the parts I wanted to change. And we'll go through it together. I know it's a little small, but time, oh, we're looking good. I said, in this case, change the dialogue. So instead of saying nature's food is the best, I wanted her to say the best part is I grew all of this in my backyard. I just changed the dialogue. And the location is the same, time of day is the same, the props were the same. There was an action that said that she used to eat the pear. I don't want her to eat the pear again, so I had her just put the pear down, and you can just kind of let her hands rest naturally, all right? So a natural sequence. And there was one other reference to the pear having a bite mark in it. And the bite mark can still be there, but she doesn't need to be biting it. But everything else should remain constant. So theoretically, if I have any idea what I'm talking about, the second video should look like a natural continuation of the first, which means I could put them together and start to make a string of videos in a sequence. So again, you saw the first one, but I'll show it to you one more time.
Nature's food is always the best.
That is the first one, and this is the one I literally just did this morning with the modified JSON with only those 3 pairs modified. This is the second one that came out.
The best part is I grew all of this in my backyard.
How did I do? Yay!
The best part is...
Thank you for kicking off the clap. I was getting nervous for a minute there. And so structured prompts can give more structured responses. Not just for making fun videos, because some of you are really cringed out by AI video, and I don't blame you. This is just me being creative on the sly. But you can use it for code. You can absolutely use it for code. For instance, this guy right here, whose name is Tyler, got tired of getting all sorts of horrible responses after paying this good money for these models in his editor. Horrible quote responses. And so he just codified it. And he codified it using JSON. So you know how context for an LLM is basically like the prompt before the prompt? Hey, please consider this before you go giving me a response. He codified everything he wanted his LLM to do in his editor and put it in JSON. Everything. And you want to look him up, he's very accessible online. I think he's a YouTuber, Tyler_AGG. I want to make sure I give him his credit. And so you can see here, well, no, you can't. Hold on. You can probably see here, if I do that, 2, 3. Yeah, the domain knowledge he wanted it to use, the LLM behavior he wanted it to use. Up there where I scrolled too far, the language he wanted it to specify, to be a specialist in, how he wanted it to break down the actual problems, design systems for human in the loop feedback, everything he wanted his code editor to do with the LLM, he codified it using JSON, put put that as context, and he's been happy. And so he made the video about it called, let's see, sorry. Hold on. Sometimes these are fun to navigate. He made the video called JSON File Turns GPT into Your Personal Senior AI Developer. That's probably a stretch, but you get the idea. If your LLM is not doing what you want it to do, teach it how to using JSON. So, okay, JSON as a contract, JSON as a query language, JSON as a prompt. What about JSON as a blueprint? 9 minutes, fantastic. JSON is a domain-specific language for UI. Now, when you see that, you're probably thinking, JSON in the UI, we already have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we already talked about that. What are you doing to me? Well, my prior background, where I had the trip to Germany, was with Vaadin, and we made front ends with Java. So be happy I'm using JSON. But specifically, I'm thinking about a thing like a JSON-powered content factory. What if you could take JSON, since you understand it so well, put it into a black box and get a reliable UI? Is there any use case where that would make sense? Fun fact, there is, where I work. Be free. We specialize in email. Email is interesting because it's typically rendered through the web, but it's not on web browsers. And I promise you, Gmail, Outlook, Hotmail, anybody use Hotmail? I'm so sad. No, I'm just kidding, just kidding. They do not render the same as browsers. So much so, in fact, that if you talk to any old school email developers, many of them were still using tables to describe the entire format of the email when it needs to be a nice structured email they're using tables, table TR, TDs and TRs all the way down. We said, no, we got you. And so we described the entire UI of the email in a highly structured, very detailed JSON and abstract that away and make it so that you can use it in one of two forms. A standalone app, suitable to drag and drop. You can give it to your marketing department, they can go crazy. Or you can embed it into your existing application, which we love, and that's what I represent, the SDK, the software development kit. You can embed our email solution into your existing app. Another fun fact, many hundreds, if not thousands, of our customers are using BeFree and don't even know it because they're not our customers, but they're our customers' customers. And we make this available as a white label solution, which means you can give this to your programmer on your marketing team. They can rebrand it to look exactly how you want it to look. You can have the red hat, the black hoodie, the whole thing, and then you sell it to your customers as your product. We're fine with that. They don't have to ever know we exist, as long as you know we exist and we keep that solution together. The whole thing runs on JSON. This is an interesting example because I talked to you about the fact that it runs on a very rich JSON. The problem with that is that rich JSON is not great for training AI. So for instance, if you have some perfect email template and it's described in our JSON and you give it to an AI and you say, hey, make 10 iterations of this, it's going to go crazy. So we made a simplified version vis-a-vis our APIs that you can send to any AI LLM that you want to. You can make iterations on it, get some different versions on it, make 100 templates from the first template and then import it back to our system and use it within the editor. Which means, again, you're superpowering now your single developer, particularly for those small teams, like they have like that one guy or the one young lady or middle-aged lady or older lady, whoever, on the marketing team, and there's all these marketers who don't know coding. Your one developer is the point, can do it. We have a content services API. In fact, there's a number of APIs that we use that all leverage the power of JSON. I'm gonna get rid of that because we don't need it anymore, nor that. But the content services API comes with a bundle of APIs we offer. Content services API, template catalog API, where you have access to thousands of templates we have, HTML importer API, which does exactly what it says. But content services API is fascinating because you can take, for instance, an export you can take your JSON template and export it as HTML or PDF. You can also do exports, like I said, using simple schema, run that through an AI, then put it back into the rich format that works in our editor, which I think is pretty darn cool. All right, we don't need that anymore, we don't need that anymore, nor that. No, we're done with all that, cool. Don't do that to me. Thank you. So if you think about it, BeFree SDK, don't pay any attention to the little knives because those are really funny. But anyway, it's contractual. So we have an understanding about how the UI is going to look. We can use it as a prompt, right? We can do an export of our simple schema to an AI and we can get a new result. We can use it as a query language, more specifically a domain-specific language. Feel free to look that up. It really is a thing. And at the end of the day, it becomes a blueprint for how not only email, because we also do landing pages and web notifications, otherwise known as pop-ups as well. So B-Free SDK, in a manner of speaking, of course I positioned it this way in my talk, is all those superpowers all rolled up into one. I'm Lawrence Lockhart, B-Free Senior Developer Advocate. If you do anything on the internet, feel free to tag me at Lawrence D Codes. I like to just talk shop. I don't necessarily look for followers, but I like talking to people who are interested in just nerding out about tech and life in general. So thank you. That's the docs. That's it. And my last favor, of course, I wouldn't be a good developer if I didn't do the picture. So if you're interested, just feel free to make noise, raise a hand, or pretend to smile on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Here's the first one. Hey. And one for this side because there's something left out. 1, 2, 3. The lights are not helping me. Awesome. Thank you so much.